X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Zach. Adam, how are you doing today?
I am good. I am
You're good? You're good?
I did accidentally say good. Yeah.
You said good, which is great and good.
It's great. Yeah, I'm doing great today, and I'm excited because we are presenting some things today.
We are presenting some things. To celebrate this episode, we wanted to bring a little MCP into your life.
Yes.
Yeah, some of that Motor City 5 action. These may not have been the most popular comics in the world, but I think everyone who read these comics went out and made comics. Is that the truth?
Everybody loves a good minor clown posse story.
Everyone loves a My Chemical Romance.
I didn't think of any other ones, but
we only had so many MCP things. No, we're talking about Marvel Comics Presents.
Yes, and we've talked about it before on the show with stories like Weapon X or Cyclops Retribution, but this series lasted for well over 100 issues, and we are going to get
175, I think.
Pretty wild, right? That it lasted as long as it did.
It's weird because it starts off with the lead story always being an X-Man anthology. Like it starts with Wolverine, but it then switches to a good amount of the cast. Then it becomes a Wolverine anthology book. Then it becomes a Wolverine anthology and a Ghost Rider anthology book. And then it ends being about Vengeance, a spin-off Ghost Rider character.
It's just riding the waves of like popularity, right? Like it's just up and down, depending on what it is. And
well, it was like bi-weekly, I think, was how they were able to get away with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that has to, a lot to do with how it got up to its higher numbers. And it is sometimes it has its gems, and a lot of time it just has like the worst crap.
It's got a lot of trash.
I do get angry. I got very annoyed this week. Let's say not angry, but I got very annoyed this week that Marvel Unlimited really has almost none of MCP as a run in their app. And I reading these issues, I kind of understand why. Does anybody really want to read like an 8 to 9 part story about Giant Man, but it's like a version of Giant Man you're not familiar with?
Here's what I think they should do. They should, one, that was Bill Foster.
Right.
He was played by Lawrence Fishburne in the movie Ant-Man and Wasp.
Yep.
He was the casualty of the Civil War, if you recall.
I would like to say most people, again, don't know who that is. So,
I think people our age or this day and age would know Bill from dying in Civil War more than anything else, which is not great. If you want Bill Foster content, I can't tell you what good Bill Foster content is, but he does have like a nephew or a son or something that is in front of the show Leah Williams' Giant Men series.
Nice.
Which is possibly the best thing to come out of War of the Realms. It's up there. That one's so good.
Yeah, she was definitely having a good time with that one. I mean, and all this is just to say that Marvel Comics Presents is a real mixed bag, but
it's frequently bad.
It is, and we have a few highlights, though. I think on this episode, so
we picked out some good ones, or at least one definitely good one that I have some thoughts on, and then we also, because folks, it's us, we picked a weird stinker.
That's a lot of fun to talk about still. So, who requested our first story of the week, Zach?
Well, it's interesting that you bring up requests because that is how this show works. We're an all request weekend 7 days a week. Actually, really, 1 day a week. If we did this show 7 days a week, one, would people listen to it? I think not.
I don't know how we would even read it all. How would we do it? Would we be done?
We would stop reading War and Peace, Adam. folks, this is a fun little side note. Adam and I somehow are in a War and Peace book club this year.
Did we mention this on the last episode?
I don't know.
I don't know who knows this, but yes, some of the Comics XF crew is doing War and Peace a chapter a day. I am several chapters behind.
We just got to the war. Have you gotten to the war?
Yes, I'm in part 2, but I'm still like maybe 2 or 3 days behind.
Okay, this is all we're going to say about War and Peace, and then we'll get back. The thing that people don't understand about War and Peace is that Leo Tolstoy often has bits in it.
Yes, it's very silly.
There's farcical comedy in this, like slapstick stuff. There's a party where a bear just shows up. And they're like, hey, yeah, this is our friend. He's the bear from War and Peace. And then they talk about, remember the last time we found a bear and we tied a policeman to it and the bear and the policeman almost drowned?
Yeah, I just finished reading a chapter where there was a long-standing joke about jackets. And it's just like not at all what I expected. I'm enjoying it very much.
There is also, and we cannot emphasize this enough, there is also a lot of war.
Yes. Well,
turns out Napoleon wasn't great. But do you know who's great?
I'm assuming the person that requested this first story.
Yeah, I was going to bring it all back to Mike Godzilla.
Ooh, good name.
Great name for Mike Godzilla. If you want to be like Mike Godzilla, first, have cooler parents. And then second, you got to go over to patreon.com/comicsxf, reach deep down into your hearts and your pocketbooks, and say, folks, I want to toss a couple of coins into the coffers. Help you guys keep Comics XF running. And it is. It continues to run.
Yeah. Good stuff happening. And what is this first story that we are covering?
Oh, this is a story from Marvel Comics Presents 109 to 116. It's Wolverine and Typhoid Mary's crossover, Typhoid's Kiss. And some of you are thinking, Typhoid Mary, I get that she's a mutant, but do I care? Well, you should, because this is a 1992 Innocenti Steve Lytle joint.
The second... I read the first part and I started to have a lot of reservations, and we'll get into what the story's about. Then I realized that I was reading an Innocenti joint because I had skipped the credits page. And then I didn't recognize that it was Steve Lytle's artwork, which we can also get into. Once it clicked for me that was what I was reading, and I was actually getting kind of like a bonus Daredevil and Innocenti story out of this, I was on board, and it's still a weird one, but I liked it.
It is still a weird one. And folks, just for ranking's sake, we're only going to be ranking the this story from these issues.
Right.
But what we'll do, since we're doing all MCP, if there's something else from these issues that catches our fancy that we want to mention, we'll mention it at the end. Before the rankings. There is
definitely something in the second story that has a bonus X-Men thing that I would like to note, but it's not in this batch. So
what is in this batch, Adam? I would like to know what's in this batch.
Yeah, so Typhoid's Kiss. Oh, do you want to know what the other stories are, or do you want me to talk about Typhoid's Kiss?
I want to talk about Typhoid's Kiss.
All right, so Typhoid's Kiss is Ann Nesenti's essentially like riffing on MK Ultra. So we begin our story with a man who is trying to, like, I guess, both stab Wolverine and also explain to him that they are the same because they've both been experimented on by their governments. And this guy wants Wolverine to hunt down the scientist who experimented on them with psychoneural surgery. I think I have that right. To implant different kinds of suggestions so that they would become assassins. And it turns out there's a bunch of these guys out there that were experimented on. And it also turns out that maybe this has something to do with Typhoid Mary and why she's the way she is, potentially.
It will get retconned, and I think smartly, later, that this is actually Weapon 9.
Yes.
It's one of the weapons things. But I mean, Nesenti's very much tying it into, hey, this is like the same stuff Wolverine went through. This is somebody else though. Like she's leading on that, especially because the Wolverine Weapon X stuff was so hot at this moment. I think the storyline is very interesting because it feels like this is Anne riffing on a very common trope story that was happening in the late 80s, early 90s. Like I bring it up all the time, or I say all the time, I think once or twice on this podcast. But the Queensryche album Operation Mindcrime
You
is
have mentioned this before. Keep going.
Queensryche's Operation Mindcrime, which I reference every week on this podcast, but not as explicitly. Queensryche's Operation Mindcrime is a late 80s Reagan era concept album about a guy who gets mind crimed into becoming a assassin.
Mm-hmm.
Very much exactly the same beats. And here's what I think. I don't think that Ann Nocenti was like, oh yeah, man, I love Queensryche. Chris DeGarmo, Jeff Tate, they're my jam. No, I think there was something in the water. Like MK Ultra became public in the mid 80s. I know there was a lot of other stuff. I'm sure there is like a cornerstone piece of pop culture that all these things are riffing back to.
Well, what we're essentially reading is a noir story, right? Because we have our femme fatale in Typhoid Mary,
we got Typhoid,
who is switching back to the Mary personality and romancing.
Do people know about Typhoid Mary if they listen to our podcast? She's a Daredevil character.
Good question. I don't know if she's come up before. So Typhoid Mary.
We've talked about Typhoid Mary in the past, but Adam, you're the bigger Nocenti Daredevil head. What's Typhoid Mary's deal?
So Typhoid Mary is a mutant who does have psychokinetic fire powers, but is also this character who simultaneously romances and tries to kill Daredevil. So if you've never seen her before, she typically paints one side of her face white with white makeup. Normal day look, she's just kind of a normal person. But then in the Typhoid Mary, her hair is this big poof of 80s Tina Turner hair. She wears like, I don't know, metallic shoulder pads and like all kinds of like shredded up clothing. And it's like this very psychosexual thing, their relationship with Matt Murdock. And we get into the same dynamics here as she romances Wolverine to try and advance her cause. And this one's an interesting one, though, because Nocenti is presenting Mary as somebody who wants to be cured of her psychosis. And so that leads places.
I think it's interesting because Typhoid Mary is essentially Nocenti's vehicle to talk about feminism and how women are treated in society and some of the dueling nature of what women are forced to be versus how that makes them react from an id standpoint. Like it's Nocenti taking a concept, blowing it up to its biggest level and finding the most high drama soapy way to do that while being incredibly explicit about the metaphor she's trying to hammer home.
Oh, as always. And it definitely captures the 80s zeitgeist of like Fatal Attraction, like it's got that Glenn Close insanity thing going on there. And here, this story, I'm not going to say it 100% works, but it is helped out a lot by the fact that Steve Lytle is, and you mentioned this before we went on the air, Steve Lytle did pass away earlier this year due to COVID in January. So, our respects to his family, but the artwork he's doing here is very unfamiliar and not at all similar to things you may have seen him do elsewhere, such as his X-Men, his classic X-Men covers, which have a much more polished look.
Or is like he got very big in the like Keith Giffen Legion of superheroes run. He did like Steve was doing the who's who of the DC universe stuff. Like he was doing how do you make the most house art kind of look. And that is not what he's doing here. He was doing a Jose Garcia Lopez, and now he's doing something very moody, very different, very sketchy, innovative layouts. Like, he's impressing on this arc in a way that, wow, I wish we could have seen more of this kind of stuff.
It's really neat to see him play around with the layouts the way he does. It almost feels, now, just keeping in mind where we're at with this series, we've already seen Barry Windsor Smith come through with Weapon X. We've already seen Sam Keith come through on Blood Hungry. It almost seems as though Steve is looking at those and saying, all right, I need to adapt so that this artwork matches the tone of this book and what Nascenti is throwing out here with this story. And so we get this like very like vibrant, very almost sketchy in parts, but it just feels a little more alive and darker than we're used to with Steve's work. So I think the artwork's fantastic.
No, I concur. I think it's great. I think the story is interesting. There is a fever dream quality to it, where it kind of floats in and out, and you're not sure what's internal versus external, what's real versus symbolic. Nascenti's playing with the same kind of tools that Nascenti loves to play with.
Sure.
But this is one of the cases, and I've been more critical about Anne's work than you have, I think is fair to say, since darn near the start of the podcast. I think this is one of the cases where it works a lot better than it has in the past. Like, this is a really interesting read that I had either read and forgot, because here's the thing, I read most of Marvel Comics Presents on a very long plane ride to Brazil.
Good choice.
And by read Marvel Comics Presents, I mean I read the X-Men related stuff in Marvel Comics Presents, and I may have skimmed some of the Wolverine solo stories that didn't immediately capture me. Yeah, I was very tired too.
That's the way to do it. I don't think you really need to go much past that.
I went with Marvel Comics Presents on that flight and X-Men Unlimited. So I had nothing but a lot of disposable stories. Did I want page turners? No, I wanted just pages.
Yeah. Well, this story does suffer for two reasons, I think. One is the episodic nature that MCP demands. So we are getting these in short blasts, and I think this would have been a lot more effective if we could have just gotten maybe one solid issue. Maybe
they do this as like one of those oversized Wolverine, like special square bound special editions.
Yeah, but we're still,
then this gets remembered for a while.
I think they do. I think they do republish this.
I know they republished it like that, but I think if it would have originally come out as a companion to some of the other stuff that was happening at this time,
I agree.
I think it becomes a bigger thing.
I agree. But because of the way it's being written to fit into this format, it feels a little choppier. I think the other thing that's to its detriment is that Nascenti relies a tremendous amount, especially in the beginning, on these internal narrators, narration blocks. And it's effective in so much as we're getting an idea of what the sort of altered minds of these soldiers are like, but it also feels somewhat repetitious, and I don't know, like
I hear where you're coming from. I think that is a very specific choice that Nascenti's making, and for me that works.
Okay.
But Nascenti doing something intentionally and stylistically that turns people off, tell me that's never happened before.
It's clearly intentional. I think folks reading this are either going to grab onto that or not. I think readers may also just be kind of turned off by the fact that when we get to the end of this story, it really is, it becomes more of just is Wolverine going to kill the Doctor or whatever, kind of story. And there's this whole thing going through this that just, the one thing that really doesn't make sense is the ongoing statement that Wolverine does not kill, which I guess editorially he doesn't. Does. Okay,
hold on. Wolverine's enemies are saying that, and they're like, "No, you're a superhero. You don't kill." And I hear where you're coming from, but I think the very end of this story, which has a fantastic last page, in
Yes.
my opinion, is the answer to that. Where this guy has Wolverine's claws in front of him, and he's saying, "You're not going to kill me. You're going to have to live with that. Like you won't have that on your conscience." And essentially, Wolverine says, "That's between me and God," or something. I forget what
the line
says,
is great because he says it's not that I don't kill people, it's that people don't find out. Which Dissenti, applause for you, my friend. It's a sick line.
It works really well, especially because it's like a page of 5 stacked panels.
Yeah.
And it's all held in one place. So the only changes are, seeing Wolverine's claws and all this stuff. And the last panel is completely black.
Mm-hmm.
And it rules.
Yeah.
Because of the implications.
Absolutely. So I think there's a lot to like here. I think if you are a Nascenti Daredevil fan, as I am, and I know you're a fan of that run as well. I think that this definitely is something you're going to want to check out if you haven't. And I think especially because of Lytle's artwork, it's also something that's just visually very captivating. So the story is, it's kind of a mixed bag, but I definitely think it's something worth checking out.
I can't believe an Nascenti story is working better for me than you. This is unprecedented, Adam. Unprecedented in the history of our list. That's right, our list, Adam.
Giant
How could
list.
you forget?
We
have a big list.
Yeah.
Do you know how many stories long it is? It's 681 stories on the road.
We are close.
Adam, we're on that road.
Yeah.
700.
Woo, crazy.
They're all ranked from best to worst. The best story is House of X, Powers of 10. You know that. X-Men Alpha Flight's at 100. Number 200 on our list is X-Force 1-2, a force to be reckoned with. Listen, it's pretty good. Number fun. 300 is X-Men to protect and to serve. Number 400 is ROM 17-18, the hybrid. Number 500 on this list is X-Men 109, which is a Christmas issue.
It's a fun one.
It's just a Christmas issue. Number 600 on this list is Chris Claremont's X-Men 100-102 Revolution.
Ugh, that's not good.
That's the word. The word is all of us. Did you know that, Adam? You gotta speak the word. Revolution. The word is all of us. Guys, go listen to Operation Mindcrime. It rules. The 681st story is my personal mind crime trigger, which is the Draco. Adam, I'm going to ask you this.
Okay.
How do you feel about this compared to another Innocenti Marvel Comics Presents that we have on here? Wait,
where are you clicking?
I'm trying to find Colossus.
Are you Colossus God Country?
Yeah, I'm trying to find 341 is Colossus God's Country. From Marvel Comics Presents 10-17. I like this better than God's Country.
I think we're in the same wheelhouse. Now, for my personal preference, I prefer God's Country. I think that Rick Leonardi and that story is just, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I don't like it better. You know why I'm thinking about this is because I think I like Leonardi's art. I also like that story, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think this Typhoid's Kiss may have more to offer. So
it does have more to offer. I was going to fight you on that one, Adam.
Yeah. All right. So let's work our way up a little bit.
I think is this better or worse than Uncanny X-Men 251-252 Fever Dream, which has that same kind of staccato structure?
I think we're in the same realm. I don't think this is as good as Wolverine Noir at 313, though. I think
that's going to be my next question.
Yeah, that's a stronger story. How about compared to Marvel Team Up 100 at 319?
I think this is better than Marvel Team Up 100.
All right, we're getting closer here.
We are. How do you feel about it compared to Lovelorn at 317?
What's that one? What happens?
That's the one where Colossus gets a tattoo.
Oh, Jesus. This is better than that.
I think this is better than the Omega arc of Ben Percy's X-Force.
I would agree with that. But
I don't think it's better. Yeah, I don't think it's better than what's right above that, which is Uncanny X-Men 114-116 to Save the Savage Land.
I think we found our spot. So this is going to be our new 316.
Hey, great job, Anne.
Yeah, man, just great stuff.
Adam,
It holds up. It's interesting and it's visually interesting. So go check
Adam,
that out.
before we move forward,
Yeah.
was there anything else in the Typhoid's Kiss issues that you wanted to bring up? Any of the
Specifically?
other stories that you
Oh,
thought about?
I don't think so. Was there one that you thought was
There is
pertinent?
an X-Men. There is an X-Men story in here, and it's terrible. There is a story in 110 about Nightcrawler hunting a modern day Jack the Ripper.
Oh yeah.
It has some horrifically bad art, very very cartoony, very wrong for this story.
Mm-hmm.
It also has a wildly offensive story about sex workers. It's not good. That one's bad. It's by Barry Dunner and Matt Runyon, or Mark Runyon, excuse me. Two creators I do not know a thing about. Runyon penciled two works for the Marvel Comics Corporation, so did not do a lot. Both Marvel Comics Presents stories. That's bad. That's a bad story. If you like bad stories, that's a good one to get on your radar.
Well, we're gonna ignore that one and keep our 316 for Typhoid's Kiss. How's that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's fine with
Yep.
me.
All right, so we are going to move to the immediate next Wolverine arc, which takes place in Marvel Comics Presents 117 to 122, Claws and Webs.
This is a Howard Mackie joint with one Sam Keith, who at the time had been doing most of the covers for MCP.
Yes, and there's an ongoing thing in MCP, especially around issue 100, where Nightmare, the villain of the Dream World, has been going after a variety of different characters. He's been going after Doctor Doom, he's been going after Ghost Rider, but he seems to be preoccupied with Wolverine as well. And in this arc, Nightmare is not leaving Wolverine alone and pulls him not into the Nightmare realm, but pulls him into an astral plane with none other than Venom. And if there are two characters that Sam Keith knows how to draw the hell out of, it is Wolverine and Venom.
So I love Sam Keith's Wolverine. I love his hairy little arms.
Oh, best. We had a little thing on Twitter about this the other day. Best hair on Wolverine, I think, ever. Just like the arm hair is you should get an award for that, Sam. It's just amazing.
It's very good how he draws Wolverine as the little gremlin that he is. I think Sam Keith is drawing a very good Venom for 1992. However, I think as Venom has existed as a character further and further, Marvel has been much more willing to allow you to go off model with Venom and do things that it's hard to look at this and see it and be like, I bet Sam Keith today could draw a way better Venom than he could in 1992.
Well,
he could be more creative with Venom in a way that he can't in these.
Yeah, potentially. What I think is really interesting about the visual style of this is that, especially because of where it's taking place, it is essentially a test run for what he is about to do on the Max. And
yes, this is Proto the Max.
It really is. You could very easily replace these characters with other characters and it be an issue of the Max, down to the creature that attacks Wolverine and Venom as they're running up the side of like a volcano to go kill Nightmare. They are basically just like in this jungle environment, which is exactly like the one that is in the dream world of the Max. So it's really fun going back to this era when Sam is like just absolutely killing it. He's working really fast to get these done on a bi-weekly basis so that they can come out. He's doing the covers. The covers look amazing. And the story is just a lot of goofy fun. I mean, what else really happens?
The story sure is written by Howard Mackie.
there's not a lot going on here, right? They are fighting essentially because there is a woman that looks like Mariko that
Does
both
it look like Mariko? Hold on.
it sure as heck doesn't, but Wolverine says it does.
It looks nothing like Mariko Yoshida.
No, it doesn't. It almost seems like Howard Mackie had to add that in the script afterwards. I don't know. But Venom seems very convinced that she is somehow going to help him defeat Nightmare and get home or something. And that's not the case. Nightmare is using Wolverine, who is using Professor X, so that he can actually break through into reality, which the plan is foiled. So hooray
Glad the
for our
plan got
heroes.
foiled. Yeah.
One thing I found myself doing as I was reading this story was envisioning, I don't know if you ever hear a character's voice in your head as you read. I often don't, just because I might be reading quickly, but I did find myself doing the Venom movie voice, the movie Venom voice.
Eddie.
And it made the story even more fun.
I want to eat a lobster tank, Eddie. Eddie. I do that voice to my kid. He loves it.
You do it to him like right before he goes to bed.
Like Eddie. No, he doesn't. He thinks Venom is neat.
Of course.
Because he's 6 years old. If you're 6 years old and you think Venom... Actually, you know what? If you're any age and you think Venom is neat, I'm not going to argue with you. Venom's fun.
Yeah. I think.
Do I want to read Venom stories? Not really.
I like him more as sort of a foil, and here that's exactly what he is. And the draw here is absolutely not the script. It is not the story. It is all 100% these beautiful visuals by Sam Keith.
Yeah, I mean that's what it comes down to. Is there's some really great Sam Keith art in here, and then also some other things.
Right. Because
didn't Sam Keith come back just like a couple of years ago to do a really short Wolverine thing?
He did.
In 29. We're going to talk about Wolverine Best There Is. Okay, I remember which one we're talking about.
It's called Exit Wounds was the one.
Exit Wounds, that's the one.
And I believe Venom was back in that as well. I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive that...
I think that is a sequel. Like a direct sequel.
Yeah.
Because it's called Red in Tooth and Claw.
Yeah.
No, wait, that's the Larry Hama one. That's weird. No, that Sam Keith story is just called Logan.
I don't remember what happens in it. That's the same issue that Wolverine is like a sushi chef and like has more kids
and
or
he has
something.
Yeah, his secret Japanese sushi family.
Yeah. Because
100% canon.
Yep.
That's Chris Claremont original, baby.
That's right.
No, that Logan story, the Sam Keith one, is even more than this, an excuse to look at pictures of Sam Keith drawing Wolverine. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
And I gotta say, I'm a sucker for it. I just recently they republished the 4-issue miniseries they did with Chris Ryall called The Hollows, as a one shot. It just got republished and it's beautiful. Like, I just love looking at this guy's artwork. So I'm a sucker for this. It's just a shame it doesn't have the story to back it up. You know, Blood Hungry, I think, has the art and has a really fun story. This is not as visually inventive as Blood Hungry, and is not as interesting. It is.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is this at 124 on our list is Blood Hungry, and this is not as good as that.
Oh no. And I don't think this is as good as Typhoid's Kiss, which we just talked about either, because
I also agree with that statement that Adam Reck made. God's Country's better than this.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think we probably have Retribution down here underneath that too, right?
I mean, Retribution's kind of low.
Retribution's pretty bad though. Like, it's not.
Yeah, Retribution's at 502. This is better than Retribution.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, this is like action figures hitting each other. You know, it's toy time.
This isn't as good as that ROM Space Knight story. So we're in the 400s.
I would agree. I think we are. I think we're somewhere around like. Okay. I was gonna say 452, but which is Adam X's back. But
things have never been deadlier?
Yeah, but I don't think this is as good as the Gene Nation and Rogue Iceman stuff at 453.
You have to remember that all the Gene Nation stuff in those is really bad, and what you and me remember is that one good Rogue Iceman issue.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I don't think this is as bad as like Aurora Before the Storm at 440.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Let's
But I also don't
see.
think this is as good as like, I don't know.
We're
Like, I don't think
we're on par with what at 439, What If 43, What If Wolverine Married Mariko? Like we're on that level. Like
we
this is
are.
where we're at.
I would say has better art than that.
Mm-hmm. I would
And
agree.
that would make me want to push it up to like, I would put it under 431, the Otherworld arc of Uncanny X-Force.
Okay.
How do you feel about it compared to the Lord Darkwind story in Daredevil?
I mean, I'm going to revisit this before I go back and read Lord Darkwind, to be honest.
Perfect. 432.
That's a fun place for it. So if you are a Sam Keith, what's the fan club for Sam Keith? We should make something up. A Maxinista?
That's a different thing, but yes.
Then you got to check this out. It's a lot of fun.
Check it out.
You know,
and then check out that recent one, and then go back to reading Blood Hungry or the Max because you wanted good Sam Keith art.
Absolutely.
Look at all of the. If you like Sam Keith, look at all of the covers for Marvel Comics Presents in 1992.
Yeah, I mean, if for that alone, that is why it should be on Marvel Unlimited, so we can actually like see some of this stuff in high def. That'd be great.
So, Adam, we've ranked this, but before we get to our next story, was there anything else in these few issues of Marvel Comics Presents that caught your eye? I know there was one that you were interested in bringing up on here.
There is, in particular, I believe it is in issue 121.
Mm-hmm.
There is a story that I was not aware of. It is Joe Mad telling a very quick story about Mirage and her time being trained as a Valkyrie after she left the New Mutants book. I was shocked to see this.
Yeah, it's a weird thing.
Very strange.
It is an interesting story beat. So Mirage is with the Valkyries, and doesn't doing fine. But then a Cheyenne god,
yes, Hota Mentanio. It suddenly appears on the scene and says, "You have abandoned our land. You have abandoned your home. You need to come home." And he will not leave until Danny promises that at some point she will return home. And the story ends with her essentially embracing the idea that she is both. You know, she's a Cheyenne first, and then she is also a Valkyrie, but she will be both. And I think this is interesting because, you know, for folks who may never have seen this, and I certainly hadn't, this was my first time seeing this story. There didn't ever seem to be a bridge between when she disappeared in New Mutants and when she reappears in X-Force. So even though it's not a good story by any means, it's still kind of neat that there is this little, you know, continuity bridge.
So here's the rub on this, because I do think it's an interesting piece of continuity. And I think this story where Danny has to say, "Listen, I am Cheyenne, but I'm also now a Valkyrie, and those do not replace each other. Those are just two parts of my personality in my life because people are more than just one thing." I think that's great, and that's like a really cool thing. It's not a real Cheyenne god, which is
unfortunate.
It's like, come on, guys, please do the bare minimum of effort.
Yes, this was written by Jay Gardner. I don't get the impression that I think the Marvel fandom says that Jay is an editor, but only wrote maybe 2 stories for Marvel.
Yeah, edited a handful of things in the 90s.
So we're not talking about someone who has clearly doesn't have a knowledge of the cultural framework to properly tell this story. And because it's Joe Mad, we're also just basically, you know, looking at 2 beautiful babes wrestling, essentially. That is what the story is.
Okay, yes. That's true.
Right?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Right. That's what's going on here.
The
However,
oh, go
I
ahead.
just found it just to be like an oddity that I was like, oh, we're going to tell this Mirage story
It's
now.
an
Okay.
it's an interesting and worthwhile 6 pages.
Absolutely.
What I found as a weird thing in these is in 119, there is a Dan Slott, Pete McDonald story called The Exclusive.
Oh, is this the Wonder Man story?
Yeah, it's a story where Wonder Man's agent Neil.
Yes. This was fun.
This
And
one,
stupid.
this one is fun. Neil is Wonder Man's agent, and Wonder Man really wants to get into more serious roles, and Neil's struggling with it. And then this guy, the agent, the agent from
From Mojoverse.
Mayhem, yeah, shows up and says, "Hey, y'all, here you go. Here's a good contract, and it's a contract until he dies, where Neil has to remind him, hey, he's immortal. He doesn't die. It's a bad contract. Mojo is loving this until he gets him into a Shakespearean role and realizes that Simon Williams, the Wonder Man, is bad at things.
He's a terrible actor. It's great.
Dan Slott, I think, has only written 2 Mojo stories, but they're both bangers.
It's pretty fun because you always love these moments where Mojo has made a deal and it's just not what he expected it to be, and I just love moments like this.
More stories in general should be about making fun of Wonder Man, a bad character.
And especially at this time, I remember back in the early 90s, I think 91, Wonder Man Volume 2,
Featuring Neil, yes.
Written by Gerard Jones and penciled by Jeff Johnson. That was a fun series because, it knew what Wonder Man was and was making fun of him at the same time. This takes it to another level. And even if the art is just kind of okay, it's a fun one. So if folks would like a fun Mojoverse story that makes fun of Wonder Man, who's very easy to make fun of, they should check this out.
Unfortunately, Wonder Man's agent did die in Peter David's Wonder Man series.
It's unfortunate.
Do you know who Wonder Man's agent was replaced by? Who his new agent is? This is a weird bit. You remember how we were talking about... War of the Realms earlier?
Yeah.
So Wonder Man's agent gets replaced in the War of the Realms series. I don't know if you knew that. The series Journey into Mystery from War of the Realms, written by Clint McElroy, Griffin McElroy, Justin McElroy, and Travis McElroy, people with more popular podcasts than us. And they just wrote that their agent is now Wonder Man's agent.
Oh, okay. Great.
That's more interesting to people who have a working knowledge of the one-time podcast, the McElroy brothers will be in Trolls 2, where the McElroy brothers successfully advocated to be in Trolls 2.
And were, correct?
Yeah, they were absolutely in Trolls 2, a movie that came out just at the right time for me to have to buy it twice on video on demand so that my children would watch it during the start of the pandemic.
So I guess that's neither here nor there.
It's for the people who care about that information, and I'll be honest, I have fallen off of the McElroy series of podcasts. But for the people who wanted that information, there's something you're going to remember for a while, is that's their agent is now Wonder Man's agent, which,
I'm
draw
gonna
your
remember
own
that
conclusions.
I'm going to remember that for approximately less time than I remember that John Hamm showed up at the Hellfire Gala.
Yeah, what was with Emma Frost's friend John Hamm being just around? And I know the answer is because he's Jerry Duggan's friend.
Exactly. That's what all it is.
I love that the Hellfire Gala guests this year were people that Jerry Duggan could get the releases for pretty easily. Love that. Not even a complaint. I think it's great. It was them and Eddie from Iron Maiden.
That's right. All right, so we ready to move?
Do you think Jerry's got an in with Iron Maiden? We'll have to see.
I mean, it couldn't hurt to ask.
I will next time Jerry's on the podcast, we'll ask him if he has an in with Iron Maiden.
That'd be great. Yeah, let's get that going. Let's get Iron Maiden on Boda.
Bud. I Would love to.
Zach's prog metal dreams come true.
Iron Maiden is not a well. Okay, they're
metal.
Iron Maiden is absolutely a metal band. They are very specifically, or at least in their most famous stuff, new wave of British heavy metal band. However, a successful argument could be made that their albums from 2001 through 2005, being Brave New World, Dance of Death, and Matters of Life and Death, whichever one has the tank on it. I forget who drew it. It was a comics person who drew that tank thing. It was great. Anyway, those are probably their most progressive albums when it comes to prog metal. Definitely worth checking out if you only know Maiden from their 80s heyday.
I love you over explaining this stuff.
People need to know about Iron Maiden. This is an X-Men podcast. Nerds from the 80s all know this stuff. I'm not a nerd from the 80s. I did have a father.
I'm glad.
Can we talk about a story that does take place in the 80s?
You know who else has a father?
Oh, are you talking about...
Let's get into this last story.
Are you talking about Lorraine Durin?
I sure am.
Oh, Clan Darkness? Listen, French people. I gotta tell you. I'm from Ohio, and we have a long and storied tradition of pronouncing every vowel that you are putting into a word. If it's there, we're gonna say it.
She's a Harkness.
No, it's Clan Darkness. Oh, Darkness. Okay. No, now that I'm saying it, that's the problem with reading words, is that you're not always thinking about how you say them, and then you said dark. No, Clan Darkness. Get out of here, Charles Soule. Charles Soule, please leave out the doors. This is Vigil for Marvel Comics Presents Volume 3, a 2019 series. Charles Soule is the writer. Dio Naves and Paulo Segura do the pencils on these 9 issues of the relaunch of Marvel Comics Presents. Was it successful? We'll get there. Adam, do you want to start?
Well, here's what I want to say is that after reading the 2 arcs of Marvel Comics Presents that we just talked about, I realized what Marvel Comics Presents is, right? It is either the place where bad stories go to die, right? That no one will ever remember, or it's the place for like funky experimental Wolverine stories, right? So when we come to Marvel Comics Presents Volume 3, and we have Charles Soule telling this story, I think this story falls into that first category, but it forgets to fall into the second category and comes out with some of the cleanest house art that you could possibly imagine, which the art is great. It's very, very well done.
That's fine.
It's such an interesting thing to go from Lytle, what he was doing, to Keith, what he's doing, to this, which is very like studious and intelligent and knows about anatomy. And I wish it were like a scratchy ink scribble. You know what I mean?
It is. So the high concept between Marvel Comics Presents Volume 3 was that each issue was set in a specific decade. And this is true for all the stories in an issue. So there was the first one was a 40s issue. So it had a Captain America story, and it had a Namor story, and it had a Wolverine set in the 40s story. Love that the through line, they're smart enough to be like, the through line of Marvel Comics Presents should be a Wolverine story. What are you talking about? Like, they did get that. They understood. They did bring in Charles Soule, who at the time was the premier Wolverine writer at Marvel.
Sure. He's doing all of the...
He was the one who did Death and Return, yeah.
Doing...
Were those good? I think one of them was good art. And friend of the show, Declan Shalvey, please. We've talked about this.
Yeah. This story's bad.
This story's weirdly bad. So in 1940s, and I'm just going to get this out of the way because the story doesn't go out of its way to tell you this. This does not take place in the main Marvel continuity. This takes place in a Marvel continuity where things kind of age normally, but also definitely don't.
Yeah. So as you go through the decades, they're matching up with the publishing schedule of the X-Men. So when you get to, the 90s, for instance, it's the 90s X-Men, right? Going forward. But you really realize it once they hit the decades like after the present, because Wolverine turns into like this kind of scrawny, bearded weirdo.
After the 90s is when you know that it's really diverging.
Yeah.
For the endings.
Yes. And I do wish that all of this was more fun, but it is not.
What we're saying sounds like interesting concepts for a story. Until we tell you about the part where it's about in the 1940s, Wolverine helps stop a Hellboy situation.
That's it.
The demon that they try and unleash, the Nazis try and unleash, is named Truth. Adam, this is a very on-the-nose name, and I feel like if you're going to give the demon the name Truth, you gotta do something good with that, and not bad, because it's a bad name. And
here's the thing about the concept of this demon.
The demon called Truth.
And the truth is that everything dies, in the words of Bruce Springsteen.
Is it weird that Jonathan Hickman can use everything dies in a comic and it sounds epic and cool, and Charles Soule uses it in a comic? I'm like, oh, screw you, dude.
All right, here's why it sucks, is because not only does the demon conveniently come back each decade
at the worst moment in every decade, which
right. So folks,
some of these,
does the truth come back at 9/11? It sure does.
No, Adam, the truth does not come back at 9/11. Very specifically. Now, could you argue that 9/11 was the worst moment of that decade? I think 9/11 was probably the most important moment of that decade and radically shifted global politics largely towards the worse and gave us the terrible hellscape of forever wars that we are in. But no, it actually comes back during the Mumbai terror attacks in 2008, which I don't know enough about. They do seem like, from my cursory research, they were pretty bad, but I was alive for a lot of bad stuff from 2000 to 2009.
Okay, but can we just stop for a second? What
Yes.
you're doing in terms of comparing absolute tragedies is what this story is also doing without realizing
because
it.
I'm trying to meet the story at its level. I do think it's a bad choice to.
It's a hugely bad choice to show Wolverine sitting at the ashes of the of the World Trade Center.
We all let Marvel do that the one time because everyone in Marvel was working through something. That was JMS and JR working through something for a moment. We should not have repeated that in 2019.
The return over and over in each issue to some real event that is an actual tragedy is just I feel like it's in poor taste.
It just kind of sucks.
This story sucks because what is going on is each decade Wolverine is summoned back to fight this demon with the daughter of the witch in the first issue. And not only did he know this small child as a 5-year-old,
explicitly a 5-year-old, then a 15-year-old. These are the two times he's met this woman. Before she turns 25, he meets with her in the 70s, I guess, and they hook up like that.
I'm speechless. Like, I'm reading this and I'm like, are you serious? We're going here, Charles. And, it's framed that she is taking advantage of him somehow so that she can have like a child that is going to continue to be a protector.
Is she doing this because the Darkness family, the Harknesses, Agatha Harkness is involved, is using her to eugenically create a super baby to finally kill the truth?
That is the implication.
That is what this story implies. Is that a weird implication to just throw into your story? Yeah, Charles.
Yeah.
What are you doing here? That's
very bizarre, especially because then later we get introduced to this daughter who kind of looks like a Valkyrie, like blonde, wearing sort of Asgardian armor. And the two of them are...
You're describing Ren Duren, who's narrating this whole story, and you just described her look. And somehow, Adam, you have left out the most important part of the aesthetics of Ren Duren.
Which are?
Her sparkly crystal diamond claws.
She does have sparkly crystal diamond claws. Yes.
She has
that is
sparkly crystal
true.
magic diamond claws.
Yes.
This story is only 3 years old.
The truth is defeated by using a time travel gimmick through hell, so that
Wolverine
the
does
truth,
go to hell in this, which is, again, every time.
Well, and here's another thing, which is Wolverine has already gone to hell. In fact, there's been that story where Wolverine has to like defeat the Angel of Death every year or whatever, and like here
there's also been the story
poised,
Wolverine goes to hell, where Wolverine goes to hell. It was an event.
And here it's posed as, oh, Wolverine's never been to hell before. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's going to get trapped. No, he's not.
Maybe Wolverine hasn't, but the Wolverine we're all reading about has. So
yes. So anyway, the way Soul eventually gets the truth to die is to not kill it, but to have the truth of the future fight the truth of the past forever and forever.
Because the truth, here's the lie about the truth, Adam. The lie about the truth is that everything dies except for the truth. The truth doesn't die. So the truth has to fight the truth, and they get locked into like a logic puzzle. And I get angry when I remember that that's how this story resolves. And I'm like, Charles, why do I have one of your novels on my to-read list? This seems like a bad idea for me.
It is not that Charles Soule is a bad writer.
It is that Charles Soule has written a lot of bad stories. Hold on, let's be clear. I've liked some Charles Soule stories. I think his overall hit rate is under 500 with me personally.
I don't know. I just think that this one in particular just...
What's your favorite Charles Soule story, Adam?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I have one. Probably... Maybe I don't like Charles Soule.
Because I think...
Let's be clear. I did like Astonishing. We've talked about that on the show before. There's definitely some stuff that I like in there a lot. Even if it's flawed.
I'm not sure I like Charles Soule as a writer. As a person... He seems very nice.
Well, I'm not worried about that. Here's what I'm going to say is that this story sucks.
This story does suck.
There is no design to the demon. The demon just looks as bland
She-Hulk.
as possible.
Charles Soule, She-Hulk. That is the best Charles Soule, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
there you go.
No, that's relevant. Go read Charles Soule's She-Hulk. It's great, actually. Back to the truth.
No, that's it. I don't have a lot to say about this. The story ends with this daughter who I don't think we will ever see again.
I can't wait until we see her again.
An alternate reality, but that never stopped anybody before. But
it's implied
this is a very
Adam. It's implied that
character.
She ends up in our reality by the end of this story. The implication is that she's hanging around 1940s France,
right? Because she has gone back in time. And everything has started again, and that we're now in the 616.
Sure,
it sucks.
It does suck,
and I could give it a little more credit if it didn't just have this. I can't believe I'm saying this because the artwork is beautiful. It is clean. It is crisp. It doesn't serve the story at all. It feels like it has no personality.
No,
I just
it's
wanted
clinical.
to look like something stylistically.
Give me something cool here. This is Marvel Comics Presents. This is when you pull out, hey, who's that artist that you've not been able to find a fit for, but maybe if you give them a shot on something, then you'll see if they make sense for some other books and give them a low stakes thing. Like this, frankly, across the board on this, I think the art in this Marvel Comics Presents series is relatively weak.
Yeah, it's very flat.
There's like, even of all the backups, there's a couple of stories that I could point to and say, I like this art. I like what they are doing with this art and how the art is used to do something weird. And we'll talk about a couple of those stories. But yeah, the Vigil, the Wolverine story where he goes every decade and fights the demon called Truth and meets his magic daughter, not good.
No.
Before we rank it, Adam, are there any others? Or did you read any of the other stories in these 9 issues of MCP?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I was very, very bored by this.
That's fine. That's fair. Let me give you the rundown of what you should read.
Okay.
Skip the first 3 issues. There's an Innocenti story that you think you might want to read, but then you see that Greg Land did the art on it.
Yes, I noticed that.
Yeah, so you can skip that one. It's fine. There's issue 4 has 2 stories that are pretty decent. One's a Daniel Cable-Smith Spider-Man, and I like Daniel Cable-Smith in general.
Okay.
That's worth checking out. Spider-Man Goes to Watch Star Wars. Here's the thing. They chose a big event. So the two backups were one story about a historic event. Daniel Cable-Smith chose Star Wars, which a lot of other things happened in the 70s. Very funny that they chose Star Wars. I get it. And then the other one was for a character that was introduced in that decade that was important. So in the 70s, they did Spider-Man, and then there is a Ben Percy, Juan Ferreira Moon Knight story. That's a really good Moon Knight story. Like, I've read a lot of Moon Knight shorts with that Black, White, and Blood that just recently came out of that.
Yeah.
This is better than all of them.
There.
This one's great.
Oh, really? Okay.
There is one that you might like in issue 9. There is you remember the .exe men?
Oh, I did read that one.
Yeah. There's a Thompson Nadler story that has great art in it as well. The Juan Ferreira art in the Moon Knight stories also really good. But this is weapon__exe. Andre Lima Arroyo does the art in that one. Great to check that out. There's one that you should just look at the cover of number 7 where it says Iron Man versus the Great Recession, which is a Ryan North Rod Reese story that tries and fails to do something. Iron Man shouldn't fight the Great Recession, even if you're trying your best, Ryan.
With Rod Reese.
Ryan North, I cannot wait for your Fantastic Four. That's bad. But what you should really check out is number 5, which has a Chris Claremont, Luke Ross story set in the Crosstime Caper that goes to an alternate Berlin where the Berlin Wall is falling, and specifically Destiny's there and acknowledges that Nightcrawler is her child.
Ooh, okay. That's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, that one's Chris Claremont saying, yeah, well, in one reality, Destiny's his mom. But I
don't know. She's kind of giving him hugs in Judgment Day, so
Okay,
we don't have time to talk.
We don't have time to talk about that. Mystique did throw this child off of a waterfall. That's her entire interactions with this, and then trying to murder him a lot. Anyway, the other story you need to check out is in number 5 as well. Friend of the show, Leah Williams, writes a really cool Venom story that is erotically charged.
Yes.
Can we rank this bad story now?
Yeah, I'm looking down at the low 500s, in the 580s maybe?
585, you've highlighted the Secret Empire arc of X-Men Blue. This is worse than that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's as, down... I don't think it's as bad as, X-Men Noir at 596.
This isn't as good as the Origins and Endings arc of Wolverine, right above X-Men Noir.
All right, well, that's going to be where it's going to go at 596.
Folks, we've told you to read a lot of things in this podcast. Skip Vigil, unless you want to know about Wolverine's magical daughter.
No, you absolutely do not need to read this.
The
definition of fluff.
I need people to demand Ren Duren comes back with her magic claws, but have her come back as she's just aged normally since the 40s, and she's like, I am 90-year-old daughter with brittle magic claws.
What if her claws had the diamonds from that Wolverine and Spider-Man time travel story? You remember that one?
Oh, yeah, Adam. I'm quite aware. Folks, we're already running long, so we won't hold up with the pomp and circumstances of the episode. Follow Comics XF on Twitter. Give us a rating or a review if you use Spotify. Just go give us 5 stars on Spotify. If you do Apple, maybe write us a nice review. We're nice. I don't bite much. It's good. I'm a dad, so I have to say the much part. As Adam, I'm sure you understand.
I totally get it. Yeah.
Adam, anything you want to plug?
No. Follow me on Twitter at Arthur Stacy. I don't know if I mentioned this in the last episode, but I was interviewed by another podcast called the Superhero Show. So if you want to check that out, I linked that on my Twitter account. So go check that out.
What are we doing?
Yeah, what are we doing next week, Zach?
Well, next week, Adam, I was thinking, because, as we all know, it's your birthday today.
That is true. Yeah.
Because it's your birthday, when I think of birthdays, I think about death, and I think about the woman who sees death. That is Danny Moonstar. And as you, Adam, age closer and closer to your inevitable demise, I thought we should celebrate by talking about stories about the Valkyrie herself, Danny Moonstar.
Love it. Can't wait.
I can't wait either. Folks, this has been Battle of the Atom, and we hope you survived the experience.
Get it!